Looking to go into your birth feeling totally prepared and confident? Well, you're in luck because our Labor Day sale is in full swing. Get $20 off all Mommy Labor Nurse online birth classes now through Monday, September 4th with code LABOR. Listen, as an L&D nurse, I've spent countless hours with women who felt anxious, even fearful about giving birth. But it doesn't have to be that way for you. Our online birthing classes are here to help eliminate every what if so you can feel completely at ease on your big day, no matter how you deliver. So, are you ready to erase the unknowns and have an even better birth? Head on over to mommylabornurse.com/courses to find the class that's right for you. Or click the link in this episode's description. That's code LABOR for $20 off at mommylabornurse.com/courses. I'll see you in there. You're listening to the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast, where you'll gain the tools, knowledge, and confidence you need to erase the unknowns, feel in control, and have an even better birth, no matter how you deliver. My name is Liesl Teen, mom of two, practicing labor and delivery nurse, and your host. From over 8 years and counting of working at the bedside, I know that knowledge is the key to an even better birth. So tune in each week to learn about all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum from me, a labor and delivery nurse that's seen it all. And now let's get into this week's episode. This week on the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast, I have a very special birth story for you guys. My good friend, Christa, is here today to talk about her birth experience. And I have known Christa actually way back when Mommy Labor Nurse wasn't even called Mommy Labor Nurse, like the very, very beginning stages of Mommy Labor Nurse. We connected on Pinterest, actually. She works for a brand that I partner with, and we really hit it off. And we've done a lot of things over the past 5 years together. Like, I've been on her podcast a few times. I traveled with her to a breastfeeding conference way back in, I think it was 2019. And we had so much fun at that conference too, by the way. Oh, I didn't even talk to her about that in the episode. But yeah, basically we go way back, and I just love Christa to death. And she just had her first baby about 4 months ago. And when I met her, obviously, I just had Walter. He was about 1.5 years old. I didn't even have Rylan. So she's been with me through Rylan's birth. And now it's just fun because she texted me to tell me that she was pregnant, and she took my course and she had a great birth experience. And I'm just, it's full circle. I said that in the episode at the end of the episode, but it's just full circle. So I'm so excited to be here today with her and share this episode with you guys. So I'm not going to give any spoilers, but this is a very positive, amazing, awesome birth story. And I'm just so excited to share with you guys. So let's get into it. Hi, Christa. Welcome to the Mommy Labor Nurse Podcast. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I feel like you are one of my oldest Mommy Labor Nurse friends. Wasn't I Labor Teen back when you found me?
Yes. On good old Pinterest. I think I found you first.
Yes. Christa and I go way, way back, you guys. And she's here to talk about a birth story. So it's full circle. I have chills already. I'm so excited to talk to you and just hear your whole experience. So if you want to add anything to that intro, but just tell our listeners kind of where you're from, anything you want to add, who you are, and then we'll get started.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I'm so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me come on. I was just telling someone, I was like, I feel like it's full circle, like you said, 'cause you came on, for Mommy Knows Best, that my podcast over there for so many times. And it's just so cool to come back and share the story. But my name's Christa, and I am a content manager for Mommy Knows Best and LaVie Mom. And so I do a lot for moms and supporting moms, empowering them. And I've learned so much through working with mom brands and just how to kind of share, and now that I'm a mom myself, real mom truths and just supporting moms and just encouraging them along the way. And so, I just had my baby. She's 4 months old now, and I live in Wisconsin. So that's a little bit about me. I live with my husband out here, and we're just enjoying the first few months of being parents.
Yeah. Amazing. Amazing. I know before we get into your birth story, I'm curious, like, how do you feel like it's changed now that you are a mom, like with working for Mommy Knows Best and Livy? Like, do you feel like your perspective has changed at all?
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it kind of goes two ways. Like, because I was at Mommy Knows Best like 4 years before becoming a mom myself. So I feel like I was learning so much stuff that I was like, oh my gosh, how do moms like do this without all this research, all this like background? And so now I feel like I'm learning it through my own lens, which is like, it's such a different experience. But at the same time, I'm so grateful for the years that I had to kind of absorb all this information, where I feel like a lot of moms, don't necessarily have that to be able to get that. So I feel very fortunate and very lucky that I was able to absorb all that information ahead of time. But yeah, I would say I feel like it's kind of like I'm learning as I go, but a lot of it has been able to be through my experience at these brands. And I'm like, okay, I do remember hearing someone's story about that. Okay, I do this, but that's not to say I don't Google 100 things, a day. Especially
we all do. We all do. Yeah. Google is hard to, we say like, don't go down the Google rabbit hole, but we all do that. So it's understandable. I mean, you said it best though. It's such a different experience, like when you actually go through it yourself. I mean, I experienced that too, where when I was pregnant, it's like, you think things are happening to you that, I'm like, oh, I'm feeling these contractions, but it's not because I was up and moving around and moving boxes and, I'm probably dehydrated. I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to, you just don't think because it's just different. So I totally get that.
Yeah, I know. I remember asking so many friends, like, well, how do I know? Like, I don't know when I'm having a contraction. They're like, oh, you know, but then I didn't know. So
I know.
Yeah, it was crazy.
It's wild. Okay. Well, we're going to get into that part, but what I usually have people do is kind of start from the beginning. I don't want to hear any sex scenes or anything and actually how you got pregnant, but how did you find out? Take me back to the very start of things and talk about your first trimester, second trimester, third trimester, and then we'll get into your birth story.
Okay. Wow. It's so funny because I feel like that was so long ago, but I'm like, oh my gosh, that was just like a year ago. I think it was 4th of July weekend that I found out I was pregnant. And the way I found out, it was actually kind of scary, but kind of like unsettling because I had a lot of like really bad cramping. And I remember waking up in the middle of the night and I was like, am I dehydrated? Do I need to drink more water? Is my period coming? All these, womanly things that are coming up. You're like, okay, I don't know what it is. So I remember talking to my husband and being like, I feel like something is different. I was like, I don't know if I'm pregnant, it's my period, or it's something more serious, a serious problem. And so the next day he went to work and I was like, I'm going to take a pregnancy test. And it lit up very, very fast that I was pregnant. But still, kind of like we were just talking about, your experience versus hearing experience. Yeah. I had never really heard someone cramping really uncomfortably like this bad. I knew there was implantation cramping, but I didn't know how it would feel because when I would kind of look it up, people are like, oh, it just kind of feels like period cramps. And I was like, this kind of feels worse than that. So I would say the first couple of weeks on and off, I would experience really bad cramping. And that one night, then I went to the ER one night, actually, like 6 weeks, I think, because it was just like, I don't know if this is normal. That's before I had verified from a doctor, that I was pregnant. And so they did a ultrasound then, and they were able to see the egg sac. But obviously it was too early to really see anything, but they're like, we can see it's moving. So, or like in the right spot. So that's probably just the implantation cramping.
Yeah, that's scary. I had that with Walter for sure, with my first one, that really severe cramping. No, I didn't have any bleeding with him until later. But yeah, it's scary because you're like, what am I miscarrying? Or is this normal? I've never heard anybody say this before. So yeah, no, it can be very, very scary. Well, I'm glad that you got some confirmation though from the ED. Did you have an appointment scheduled, I don't know, a week or a few weeks later or something? And they were like, okay, everything's fine.
Yeah. So when I first found out, I had called to make an appointment and they were basically like, you come in at, I want to say it was 7 weeks, and you will basically just verify that you are pregnant, but then you won't meet with your provider until like, I think it was 10 or 11 weeks, I want to say.
Yeah.
And so that was another thing. I was like, oh, that seemed so far away. I was like, you want me to wait to meet my doctor until 11 weeks? Oh my gosh.
I know.
Yeah, it just seemed so long. But yeah, so when I had gone into the ED, then they were like, okay, we see you already in the system, so we'll see you back in 2 weeks. So that was kind of reassuring too. But yeah, and so then I went back in. That's when we got like the official confirmation. Even though at 5 weeks we did, it was just kind of early. But yeah, so then we got the official confirmation, and that was just so cool. I mean, that was just like amazing. But I would say what I actually can visualize in my mind is like this like pivotal moment was my 11 week where my husband and I went in with the provider, and I just remember seeing like the baby move on the ultrasound TV, and like just like the tears just like flowing, because it's like feels so real at that point. Because beforehand you're just like, I don't know, I didn't really like connect at that point yet. I'm like, I don't know, am I just, imagining it, And so that was just like such a cool moment at that point.
Oh, I know exactly what you're talking about, because it's so different seeing them on ultrasound from 7 weeks, 6, 7, 8 weeks, even to 11, 12, 13 weeks. Oh my gosh. It's like a little jelly bean versus like a little tiny baby human that's moving around and has limbs.
Yeah. Just the coolest thing.
Yeah. Crazy. Well, tell me how the rest of your pregnancy went. Did you have any health concerns? Anything significant happen?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of when I started, but I remember messaging you when I was getting like nauseous.
Yeah.
I think it probably started around week 7, I want to say, and it lasted probably until 12 weeks. Then there was like a little pause, and then kind of came back a little bit later. So first trimester, I did have a lot of food aversions and nausea. We kind of laugh about it now, because I would text my husband when I was at work, and I'd be like, I'm craving pizza so bad, I'm going to get it after work. And so I would go to work and I'd get a pizza. And by the time I got home to cook the pizza, I'd eat like one slice and be like, I can't even look at the rest. It would gross me out. So like my cravings would change so quickly, like daily almost. It was bad. And then a lot of it would just like, I didn't actually like get sick and like puke a lot. It was maybe just a couple times. Most of it would just kind of just feeling super nauseous. Like I would just have to like lay down a lot. I would get really tired. And it's funny too, because that's like this trimester that like no one really knows. So you're like, just, and I remember being at work meetings and just being like, just like swallowing water and being like, I'm good. And then as soon as I'd get back to my office, being like, like trying to like let it all out. But so yeah, that was first trimester. Second was amazing. I got boost of energy. That's when I pretty much was like cleaning everything. We were kind of starting like, I'm such a planner. So I started doing like the nursery at that point. We're moving stuff out of the room. I was like, this is amazing, and you're starting to get like that cute belly. And so it was just fun getting like the pregnancy clothes. And by that point too, everyone knew, like our families knew. And it was so fun telling them. And so, yeah, second trimester was so great. Even third, I mean, like the nurse at my doctor's office, she always was like, every time I see you, you're just in such a good mood. And I was just like, I just feel like, especially maybe it's through working at Mom Brands, you hear so many different stories, and just like I feel so grateful and lucky that I was able to like have this experience, and it doesn't always go so smooth for people. So I just feel like I just took every day as like, I'm so grateful to be in this body. I'm so grateful for what my body's doing. And so third trimester, for the most part, went really smooth. It was only maybe towards like the end that I was getting really uncomfortable, because I ended up going 41 weeks and 3 days.
Ooh, so
yeah. And it was just like the ongoing joke. Like I would see people and be like, oh, maybe next time I see I'll have a baby. And then I would see them again. I'd be like, okay, maybe the next time. Maybe it was being really comfy in there.
Yes, which is not uncommon. Like that is a thing, especially with first time moms, but I mean, all moms being overdue, and, a due date is just a due date. Your baby kind of chooses, unless you get induced, right? But like your baby kind of chooses when it's done cooking, when he or she's done cooking. Whether you're due in a few days or a few months, I'm guessing you'd love to feel a little more in control of your birth experience. This is why I'm so pumped to tell you about my brand new, totally free birth prep guide. It's got over 40 pages of info and resources to help you erase the unknowns and gain that sense of control that you deserve. There's hospital bag lists and birth plans, third trimester to-dos and freezer stocking recipes, tons of info about epidurals, unmedicated birth and C-sections, guided meditation tracks, and so much more. Here to help you prepare for birth, no matter how you plan to deliver, head on over to mommylabornurse.com/birthprep to grab it now, or simply click on the link in the description of this week's episode. That's mommylabornurse.com/birthprep to access the free birth prep guide today. Yeah, it's not uncommon to go, a week, a few days, a week and a few days overdue. It's not fun, but it definitely happens and it's definitely normal.
Yeah. And it's funny because I really didn't mind it much. I was fine with being, pregnant and stuff. But a lot of times people's comments or questions about babies coming at 38 weeks, people be like, baby's coming soon. And then so I would kind of be like, well, I mean, I don't know. And so it kind of makes you feel like you're behind because you're like, well, wait. And they'd be like, oh, you're still pregnant? I'm like, well, yeah, sorry. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. So, but other than that, I was trying to do meditation through the end and just being let's just, take it day by day. Yeah.
Day by day. I mean, that's all you can do, especially at the end. What I did not with Walter, but with Rylan I was just talking about this on another podcast episode, was I took a social media break at the end there. And I went into labor the next day because I just need to get away from just people questioning and just everybody asking questions because it's a lot. It's a big mental load.
Totally. Yeah. And it's the thing they say about when you are stressed or overthinking about something, your body kind of tends to tense up. Because I noticed the same thing. I was all along, I was I'm going to work up until the baby comes, And then when I was going past my due date, so at my 40-week appointment, that's when my doctor was like, we wouldn't want you going too much farther than 41 weeks. So, then she was kind of open to what day I wanted to pick the following week. So they were going to induce me, but using Cytotec, I think that's the name, because I wanted to avoid Pitocin if I could. I know we'll get into that. But yeah. So once we had that date set, it was almost my body was okay, we can relax a little bit now. Because I think it's almost tense about what if I go into labor and I'm here? What if I go into labor and I'm driving? I'm thinking about all these things. Yeah. And then that day also I messaged my boss at work and I was like, all right, I think this Friday's gonna be my last day. So that would give me I think it was a weekend and then a few days to just focus on my body, the baby, our family. And that's when I was doing curb walking outside and I would get myself outside more. And that's when I lost my mucus plug. And I was like, okay, I think my body's kind of okay, you can relax now. Things are going to happen. So I think I was just I was still trying to finish up things for maternity leave and all that stuff. So it's just kind of funny how, your body will do it when it's ready.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me more about some of the things you did leading up to labor, if you did anything. I want to go to that 40. You said it was 41 weeks and 3 days?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So first and foremost, I, way ahead, I was I want to hire a doula. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's one of the things I think probably I learned from you, talking to you years ago. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was so I'm going to get a doula. So early on, my husband and I interviewed 3 doulas. Mm-hmm. And one we just clicked with right away. Even in her emails, I was this is the girl. I just knew it. And so she was really helpful through a lot of it because even unfortunately during my pregnancy, I also got COVID. And so she and I was just, of course, a worrying mess. So she helped me through that. And then we met with her at 36 or 37 weeks, I think, to kind of go over birth plans. And so she helped a lot with when we got closer to the time of going into labor, different things that we could do. So I was making sure I walked more. Because, with working from home, I was sitting a lot and I was maybe sitting too much. I need to walk. I need to get out, that kind of thing. I did what's the one? It's the curb walking.
The mile circuit?
Circuit. Yes. Yeah. So I did that a few days before I went and got induced. So I did that. So that was just having a doula kind of guide us through this was really helpful. And then I did take your unmedicated labor course, which was so helpful.
Good.
I've told some friends about it. It was just like I was saying, like having this job and doing these interviews has helped me over time, like just learn more. But your course helped me like know exactly what to look for, questions I should ask, or what might be normal, what might not be normal. And so that helped me just feel so much more educated when I went into it, knowing like, okay, I can ask for this, or I can say I don't want this done.
Yeah.
And so I found when it came time for labor, I wasn't scared.
Good.
Yeah. And like not saying, you know, you can do all the books and you can't be scared.
Right.
Like there's still some fear around it. But if you would have asked me years ago, I probably would have been a completely different person. But I walked in like excited, comfortable, knowing that I did my part to kind of understand what my body's going to do, what it could do, what different things can happen. And so those are the biggest things. I've told so many friends, like, get yourself a labor course and get yourself a doula, because like my husband, and I will talk about this too, but he was amazing because, I mean, you talk about it in your course, like getting your partner on the same page. He was an amazing support person, but even he will say, I'm so glad we had the doula too.
Yes.
She knew more about like the body and like the contractions and where he can support me. He can be my cheerleader and he helped so much. But she kind of knew more of like, okay, you're in that transition right now. Like breathe through this. And so that's where I'm kind of like, if anyone has any doubt, doula is 100% worth it.
I mean, you're speaking my language, girlfriend. Like, I get it. I totally second that. Totally agree. I wish doulas were it was just like, okay, this is what you do when you have a baby. You go through your prenatal care and you go to your appointments and you take your birth course at this, week. And then, here are your doula options. And if you can pay this amount, it's like, it's just understood more that like, this is a part of our birth team. It's not quite, we're not quite there here in the US yet. That birth like needs more support because it's such a hard experience, not only for mom, but like you said, for dad too. And dad, I love that you said like dad is not, or partner, whoever is not your doula. Like it is a very separate role. They can do similar things in supporting you, but like a doula is such a separate role from like your support person. And yeah, like I said, I second everything you just said.
Yeah. And my doula said this really awesome thing when she came to like meet with us, go over our birth plan. She looked at Zach, my husband, and said, you're going to want to fix her. Like in that moment, you're going to see her in pain. You just want to fix it. You want to take the pain away, but you're not going to be able to. So all she needs you to do is just be there for her and like support her. And the fact that she like said that to him, he like took on this role as like protector and he just needed to like encourage me. And it was just like the coolest thing because like, I think a lot of dads, also go into birth like very fearful. Like, I don't want to see my wife in pain like that, And so I just thought that was such a cool thing for her to bring him into it and be like, okay, you have this job this way, but you can't fix it. It's okay.
Yeah. And that's a fact. It's contractions are there for a purpose. They're not to be feared. They have a purpose to get the baby out.
Yeah.
And they can be uncomfortable and they can be painful, but it's like, they're not just going to go away. So we have to recognize how to cope with them in the best way possible.
Yes. Oh, yes.
Oh, well, I love it. Well, let's get into Labor Day. Tell me kind of what happened. Did your water break first? Did you start laboring in the car? What happened?
All right. So we actually had an appointment at 8 a.m. to get induced. And so that was with the Cytotec. So we went in and that's like the pill they insert. And so they first checked me and like hooked me up. And I was like, so sure. I was like, oh, I lost my mucus plug. I for sure am going to be like 3 centimeters.
Yeah.
They checked me and I was like, nothing. I was like, what?
Oh, yeah.
That was like at my 40-week one too. There was like no change. So they hooked me up and they were able to see that I actually was contracting. So they left the Cytotec in, I think for, I want to say like an hour and then to like dissolve. And then you can walk around, you can do whatever for the next 4 hours.
Yeah.
So we knew we had a full like day ahead of us.
Yeah.
And So after the 4 hours, so we're like walking around the hospital floor, just trying to get like things moving. Then they check again. And I just remember that one being kind of painful. And that's when I was trying to get like my mind frame set of like, okay, I need to like relax a little bit because I think at that point I was kind of just tense. But so she checked me at that point and I went to 1.5 centimeters.
Okay.
So we're making some progress. Yeah. I was like, okay, we're making some progress. They were able to see again that I was having contractions, which they were like, that's all good because I couldn't feel them at that point. I kind of felt some very mild like period cramps, like on and off like the weeks prior. So I wasn't sure if that was it, but they were like, nope, it looks like your body is contracting. And then after that 4 hour, they're like, okay, we're going to give you one more Cytotec pill because they really wanted to avoid the Pitocin. They knew I wanted to avoid Pitocin too, if possible. And so they did it again. And they were like, if this goes how it should, we shouldn't have to give you Pitocin. But if you're still not,
in labor,
yeah, we're going to have to, do the next thing. Yeah. So then they checked me after the next Cytotec. And when my doctor checked me, my water broke. Yeah. It was like, not to get too graphic, but it was like a movie scene.
Oh, really? It was all over the place.
Yeah. Yeah. And people commented my whole pregnancy. They were like, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people get this, but they're like, are you not sure you're not having twins? Like, great. You're so big, like all that stuff. And I don't know if it's because I'm short or if a small torso, but like I'm looking at pictures now. I'm like, I had a huge belly. It's okay. I didn't take offense to it. But so my doctor was like, I think you just had a lot of amniotic fluid, like honestly. Yeah. And then again, through doing like this work and stuff, I was like, okay, as soon as the doctor left, I'd look at Zach and I was like, this is when the contractions start. I know that. And so, yeah, my water had broke and, it was still kind of obviously like trickling after that a little bit. And they were just kind of like, okay, you can just like walk around, do what you need to do. At that point, we were like in touch with my doula and she was going to come, kind of when we just told her like, okay, it's time. And so at this point, this was one of those rooms also with like, it's considered like a baby friendly hospital. So like the room was like, they could dim the lights. They had a tub in the room, music going. So once the contractions started coming more like regularly, Zach and I were kind of timing them, nurses would come in and kind of help me with like, they brought me like the ball, they brought me like all kinds of things, just kind of get my mind off of it. So before the doula got there and the contractions were coming more regularly, like Zach would be like squeezing my shoulders and just kind of trying to get that like pain away. And then it was so like interesting to be like going through it because I always had kind of wondered what it felt like. And in the beginning, it was just, I'd be like perfectly fine. I'd be like, okay, they're coming on. Okay. Now, like I kind of just knew what till then look for, I could tell. And then they were just coming on like stronger and stronger. So then by that point, that's when we told my doula, like, okay, I think you should come in.
Yeah. Sometimes I see that people are just a little bit more aware and with it in those early stages before transition kind of hits.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. I was like, oh, okay, this is it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's nice sometimes to know just that it's predictable. Sometimes I think, people find comfort in knowing that like expect it to take a long time, right? Like you're going to just keep having contractions and eventually you're going to have your baby, but like expect that this is going to be a long process, right? Because like, I think that's something that really, really holds people back is like, oh my God, like when is the baby going to come? And blah, blah, blah,
Yeah. And like, this is kind of like a side note, but like one thing my husband and I decided to is like that we weren't going to have any visitors at the hospital. We weren't going to have anyone come in.
Good for you.
Yeah. Yes. Other than like us and our doula. And it was like hard to tell family at first, but then we were just kind of like, you know what, knowing myself, like I'm such a people pleaser and I'm always trying to like think of people like around me. So I knew if people were waiting, I would be like, oh my gosh, am I taking too long? And just like not being able to focus. And so like this, I feel like allowed us to really just be like in that moment and be like, there's not like a set time. Like we're going to just let my body do its thing. But yeah. And then obviously at that point, they were like, yep, you don't need any more help. Your body's going. And so my doula was on the way. And long story short, she somehow ended up at the wrong hospital.
Oh no.
But when she did get to us, it was like the perfect time because that's when like things were really moving. Good. And she was kind of like coaching like Zach through like texts and stuff. But then when she got there, it was awesome. Like I used the tub for, I would say, majority of labor. So Zach would kind of be at the front and he was like doing like pressure on my shoulders. And then the doula would be like doing acupressure on my back. Mm-hmm. And then she also had like the hose from the tub putting like warm water on my back. Mm-hmm. So that really helped just kind of take the pain away a little bit, kind of help ease it a little bit. I had all like your like tricks like ready. I was chewing mint gum to help veer away from that. She had a diffuser going with essential oils. And then I made a birth playlist, which
nice.
I was telling someone recently, I was like, make a birth playlist. Because during my pregnancy, it was a lot of the same songs I would listen to. So when I would hear them during labor, it like gave me this like kind of like euphoria almost.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, it was just like the best thing. Like I would just hear it in the background and it was just like, there's some of the time in the transition where I didn't know what was playing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, there was just this amazing like connection then to like this music and what was going on with my body.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm taking that piece of information you just gave me and like it's locked now in my head. So I'm going to put it in the courses or I'm going to do a post about it or something. But that's so cool. I get that so much because you're right. Like whether it's, I don't know, some hit song that came out during your pregnancy or some album that you're just listening to a whole lot. But there's like, I feel like everybody can relate to that. There's always like songs and music that you associate with that time period. So like to be able to just put it all together into that playlist and just use it to help you and just be able to listen to it while you're actually giving birth. I get it. Feels so powerful. All right. The sound of that heartbeat means it's time for this week's segment of Birth It Up Babies. This one says it's about the C-section series. She says, thank you. I have your C-section course, which I bought over a year ago, and I just watched this week as I'm scheduled for my C-section next week. I had a traumatic first birth, 4th degree tear, and PTSD. Yikes, that is rough. And the decision to have a cesarean has been so empowering. Love that. And your course has given a clear play-by-play of what to expect, ask, etc. Has been a huge comfort for both me and my husband. Thank you for creating this and what you do. Oh, I love it. See, it's like you guys who have scheduled C-sections, this is why we created this course, because there is still so much for you guys to learn. It's not just if you're planning a vaginal delivery. That is a myth that the only people that should take birth courses are people that are planning to have vaginal deliveries. You absolutely can still do birth education if you have a scheduled C-section coming up. There's so much to talk about, so much recovery stuff. Yes, love it. So if you want to have an even better birth, just like this mama, head on over to mommylabornurse.com/courses to learn more about our 3 online on-demand birth classes.
Yeah, definitely recommend that one. And so then the contractions were getting more intense. We had switched to, I think I was at the night nurse had come in at this point, and shout out to her. Like she was just the most amazing nurse I think I'd ever had experience with. She was just like, I remember in the middle of me being in labor, like or going through contractions in the tub, she like came up and held my hand. She was like, Christa, you got this. You are so strong. Like you got this. And I remember just like hearing her in my ear, just being like, oh my gosh, like I can do this. Like I can do this. Yeah. And then I remember them checking me and I was at, oh no, they didn't tell me that. Okay. So my doula was like, let's check her. At this point, I was in the tub and I was like, I think I need the epidural. Mm-hmm. And she was like, if you want the epidural, that's your choice, but you need to be sure. Don't use words like I think, because we know what you actually want. And like, she was like, let's breathe through it, like helping coach me. That was like kind of jumping around a little bit, but she was really good with coaching me on like breathing down. I tend to tense up. And so she's like, breathe down, like, let's get through these contractions and let's see how you feel after these next ones. So I had said that a little bit in the tub. They're like, how about we have the nurse check you again and see if we're making progress? But like, let's not tell Chris. Like, they don't want to get discouraged. So she checked me and then they were like, okay, you're doing really good. You're almost halfway there. They're like, let's try getting you back on the hospital bed with a peanut ball. Mm-hmm. And so with every kind of movement, that's when like the contractions were like a little bit stronger then. And so it was kind of like the anxiety of doing that. But I remember getting up on the bed, laying on my side. And that's when, again, I don't want to get too graphic, but that's when I got like sick. And I basically we had to get the puke bags. Basically, I got very nauseous during that point, but we ultimately, without getting too many details, I could add so many details, but
it's okay. Whatever you feel like you want to add, we have time, no rush. I want you to be able to tell it your way. So, and we talk about a lot of graphic things here on the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast. So don't feel like you have to sugarcoat unless you feel like you want to. But yeah, we're open.
All right, cool. I'm pretty open. So, all right, here we go. No, just kidding. But yeah, so like, it's so weird because like looking back, I don't remember some of the order of things, like these memories in my mind. I know I got sick in the tub at one point. I think that was after like the hospital bed though. So ultimately, like my doula was like, I think you need to go back in the tub because I think that's where you were really, really feeling it. And so, because when I was on the hospital bed, a new nurse had come in and she accidentally said out loud how far I was. And I was only 3 centimeters. And so I got really discouraged. And I remember looking at Zach and I was like, I need the epidural. And I was like trying to whisper so like he would just get it for me. And he was like, Christa, you're doing so good. You got this, like really encouraging me. And at that point, it was hard. It was hard to not like feel defeated.
Yeah.
And I just remember like breathing through it. And I was like, I don't know if I can do this. And they were just like really encouraging me. And that's when my doula was like, let's go back in the tub. And she had more suggestions for like my body. And so I remember kind of going on all fours, but like putting my knees together. And that actually did help a lot with like, I don't know, it just felt better on my body. I also did some like flipped over where my back was down and that kind of helped. So just kind of like moving and kind of feeling like what felt good on my body and just, being in there. And then eventually all of a sudden I like started kind of feeling this like urge to push. And they were like, we want you to listen to your body. Let's just make sure you're like dialing the right, because she's like, I don't want you to like push and then, have, I can't remember what she said it was called, but when you like push too much and it's like,
you can swell, like your cervix can kind of swell. Yeah.
Yeah. So they were like afraid of that happening. So they like checked and I went from 3 to like 7.5, 8.
Nice.
Yeah. Within like, I don't even know how long it was. Cause in my mind, it like was so fast.
Yeah.
So it was probably only like 30 minutes, I would guess 30 minutes or so. And they were like, you are making amazing progress. Like you're going to do this.
Yeah.
I just felt this like, I'd the song Fight Song on.
Yeah.
So I don't know if it was on at the exact time, but I just remember like feeling like, okay, yes, you can do this. Yeah. They like checked me in the tub and they're like, you are making good progress. So I was leaning into, if you feel like you can push, just kind of go with it. And at that point, I was just telling someone recently, I was like, at that point, it like started to feel good almost like, because you're listening to your body of like, oh, it's time. Like you can push, like the baby's coming. And so I was pushing. And then my doula was like, I bet if you were to reach down, you'd be able to feel the baby's head. And I was like, oh, I don't know. And eventually I did that. And just tears flooded because it was just like, oh my gosh, my baby's going to be here soon. And I just remember looking at Zach and we were just both crying like, oh my gosh, like what's happening? And so, a lot of the hospitals, like you can labor in the tub, but you can't give birth in the tub. That was our hospital. And so when baby got really close, they were like, okay, we got to call the doctor in. I was still in the tub. Like, I think if I would have stayed a little bit longer, baby probably would have just come out in the tub. But my doctor came in and was like, all right, we got to move you to the bed. And so that was a little challenging because the baby was like so close to
there.
Like, coming out. Yeah. And so we walked over to the hospital bed. I knew I wanted to be on all fours because that was another thing I'd learned. Like, I think I'd seen in your course or you talk about is you don't necessarily have to lay on your back. And that didn't seem like that would be comfortable for me. So I did the all fours. And at this point, I just felt like so much like power and like strength. And I was like, I can do this. And it's funny. I was just telling someone like I had seen so many birth videos before my birth. And I would see like the women that, do like the deep, like, like the almost like, I can't even think of what you would call it, but like yell almost. And I was, oh, I'm quiet. I wouldn't do that. And then sure enough, I was on the bed and I was like, my husband's like, you're making sounds I never heard you make before. And I just felt so like powerful. Like I'm a woman, like, look at what I can do.
Yeah.
And so then at that point because my doctor, a couple nurses and my doula all were there. That was when like the baby's like head was coming out. And so that's when like kind of felt the pain again, the ring of fire. And I was just trying to try my best to ignore it. I was like, they were really encouraging, like, she's so close. Well, I didn't find out the sex of the baby. Like, baby.
I know. I was going to say, I don't want to like bring that up because I want you to say it at some point. And I'm like, yeah, I can't wait for her to say that.
Yes. Yeah. We didn't find out. So I feel like that kind of helped too. Cause I was so excited to find out. I mean, of course, when you find out too, you're excited, but I was just like, oh my gosh, like my whole pregnancy, I felt it was a girl. Like I just so strongly felt it was a girl. Yeah. It was just like before I even became pregnant, I feel like I had a dream or something that I was a girl. And so all this like crazy stuff. So I was so eager and they were just like, we can see baby's head. And so I just knew it was so close. And I was just like almost at like the top of my lungs, just like going. And then before I knew it, then the baby was out. And I remember like, cause since I'm like on all fours, I could kind of just see behind me. So I kind of just saw part of the baby, but then it kind of was a little scary at first. It happened so fast that like, it wasn't scary for me because I didn't really know what was going on, but we had wanted to do delayed cord clamping. Mm-hmm. But before I knew it, they had moved the baby to the heat lamp and Zach had already cut the cord. And I was like, oh, wait, we were going to do delayed cord clamping. And even my doula came out. She's like, no, like when baby came out, she had a shocked look on her face. Yeah. So they think it's because she might have been in my pelvis too long. They don't know like what it was. But so they were just like, let's cut the cord, get her over there. So again, I don't know if I'm telling some things out of order, but then they were like, okay, like, I don't know if it was once, I think then they brought the baby back over maybe. Mm-hmm. And I was still on all fours and they were like, okay, Dad, we want you to announce what the baby is. And he was like, it's a girl. And I just like lost it at that point. And it was just like the coolest thing. Then I like moved over so I could obviously hold her. And it was just like this indescribable. It was honestly like the most amazing moment of my whole life, like right there, like everything I just went through, like it all made it so beautiful and so like worth it. And it was just like this instant feeling of like adrenaline. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I know you've kind of talked about it before too, like almost this like natural high of like adrenaline and like excitement and love. And you're just full of so many emotions at that point. And we were just like enamored with her. We were just like, oh my gosh, like I can't believe this just happened. And I'm trying to think of what else kind of happened. I just remember also like the nurse that, I said she was just so amazing. I just remember all of a sudden this like adrenaline came over at me and I'm just chatting up a storm. Like I'm just talking to everybody. I'm just like, so like happy over the moon. And I'm just like chatting about this and that. And, I'm just like, you would think I'd be tired. And I was just like, I didn't feel it. I felt so energized in that moment. Yeah. And I remember when they were like, oh, like, after like they were showing me, they were going through how to like nurse her. I feel like I'm back in the moment right now. I'm talking so fast.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. You're good. No, you're great. You're great.
Okay. But I feel like right away, so many things happened right away, but they'd go through like the different tests and stuff. They were kind of showing me how to like breastfeed her, and her latch from the beginning was really great. Luckily, we just had to work on like one side. I think I just had to like kind of pull her lip out. She kind of did like this lip tuck thing where it kind of pinched then, but she was like ready. And then they had to do the blood test on her too. And she did have low blood sugar. And so they gave, I'm trying to think if that was the next day, but they did donor milk for her.
Oh, gotcha.
Right in the hospital. I think that was the next day. So they just like the little foot prick, which that like, oh my gosh, that killed me. Cause that was like her first like cry. Like, oh my gosh. I think I probably cried with her the first time. But it was just like looking back and I'm like, she's 4.5 months old now. And I'm just like, it seems like yesterday, but it seems like a year ago at the same time, like years ago at the same time, because like so much has happened since. But it was just the most like amazing experience. And I just felt so empowered, so strong. And it was just like the best experience I could have asked for, because I felt like, like I was educated in it and I knew what to look for. And I just really trusted my body, I feel like. And yeah, and that's kind of why I tell people too, like the doula is like so crucial, because I think if she weren't there, I might have caved and gotten the epidural. And not saying, if that's everyone's choice, if you want to epidural or not, not saying that. It's just like that for me, I just envisioned not doing one. And so she really like stuck me to that and like helped me like, you can do this, you can do it. And that realization of when she was coming, and I was like, I did it. And I remember looking at Zach and being like, I did it. I was unmedicated, and I just, it was better than I could have asked for.
Oh, Christa, I love it. I have chills all over my body. Like thank you so much for sharing that. I feel like I can just relate so much, because I know exactly the feeling that you're speaking of, because I experienced that same thing after I had Walter. And that's kind of what sparked Mommy Labor Nurse and creating all of these courses and this whole platform, because it's like, I want everybody to feel this way. And I want everybody to go into their birth feeling prepared, and just, even if things don't go the way you want, I want you to just be able to know what to expect. And it's just, I get it. So thank you so much for sharing.
Course. I love talking about it. Well, yeah, and your course and like what you do has helped me so much. And like, it helped me before I even knew I needed to help me, like, years ago when we would talk. And it's just so true of like empowering yourself through education and just understanding like your body was made to do this and you are capable. And it's just like repeating those affirmations and hearing it was just so, it helped me so much. So thank you too.
I love it. This is fabulous. Well, thank you so much. Do you want to share a social media page? Or I know you mentioned you work for Mommy Knows Best and LaVie. Where can people connect with you if they want to connect on social media?
Yeah. So I'm very active on TikTok for both pages. We have LaVie Mom Official and we have The Mommy Knows Best. On TikTok, we're also on Instagram. You'll see my face on TikToks and Reels. We do a lot of educational posts. We have products to support breastfeeding moms and just kind of what we were talking about earlier, just empowering moms in their breastfeeding and postpartum journey. That's what we're here for. So you can find us on all the socials. Awesome.
Well, we'll link those below for people to check you out and follow along. I know it's not that birth, and that's why I have a lot of postpartum stuff in my courses too, because it's like, it doesn't just end with birth. Then you go on the next journey.
Exactly. Yeah. Then you continue to the 4th trimester for sure.
Exactly. Oh, Christa, thank you so much for joining me today. This was such a pleasure.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me. It was awesome.
Oh, it just warms my heart. Like I said in the beginning, I've known Christa for a while, and just to hear her tell her birth story after taking my course and just after knowing all the things that, she's learned over the past years, it really does come full circle. So I was just so excited to share that birth story today with you guys. Next week on the Mommy Labor Nurse podcast, I'm doing a solo episode, and we are going to be talking about pharmaceutical pain options for labor other than epidurals, because I've done, pretty in-depth episodes about epidurals, but this one's going to be about pain control options, what you can do if you're like, kind of try and avoid the epidural if at all possible, but I want to know all of my options. So we're going to be talking about that next week. Stay tuned. I will talk to you guys then. Already feeling a little more confident about pregnancy, birth, and newborn life? Don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you can continue to erase the unknowns and never miss an episode. And if you're looking for even more, Instagram is definitely where I hang out the most. Come join our community of more than 500,000 moms for birth education, tips, and solidarity. You can find me at mommy.labornurse. Check out today's show notes and a searchable library of every Mommy Labor Nurse podcast episode at mommylabornurse.com/podcast. And while you're there, be sure to head to the blog to learn about our online birth classes too. See See you next week. And remember, you can have an even better birth no matter how you deliver.